Have you ever felt it, the sting of a remark that cuts sharper than it should, the glance that lingers too long, the smile that isn't quite a smile? It begins small, almost invisible, like a draft slipping under the door. You tell yourself it's nothing, you brush it aside. But then it grows louder, clearer, and suddenly the room is watching. The joke is no longer harmless. The silence in your chest is no longer peace. And you realize too late that by ignoring it, you've already agreed to it. Disrespect rarely arrives like a storm. It comes as a test, a probe, a quiet question. Will you let this stand? If you do, the answer becomes clear to everyone, not just to the one who crossed the line, but to every eye that was waiting to see how you would hold yourself. Respect, as the Stoics knew, is not given, it is enforced. And the moment of violation is where the truth is revealed. The only question is, what will your next move be? Stay with me, and let's walk into that answer together. As we step into the first chapter, picture the moment when a room tilts against you, a careless remark dressed as humor, a glance that lingers too long, a tone shift so slight that only you feel the cut. Most people laugh along, brush it aside, pretend it's nothing. But here's the truth. The first cut is never small. It is a test, a probe. And the way you answer it writes the script others will follow. Now imagine you take the bait. You flare, you defend, you explain. In that instant, you've already surrendered. Because anger, as Marcus Aurelius reminded us, belongs to the one who provokes it, not the one who receives it. The moment you explode, you hand them control. They wanted to see your balance crack. They wanted to watch you bleed in public. And you gave them the show. The Stoic response is the opposite. When disrespect shows its face, you do not rush to crush it with noise. You withdraw, not in weakness, but in mastery. You let silence harden around you like armor. No laugh, no defense, no excuse. Just a pause that lands heavier than any outburst. Seneca said it best. Silence is a lesson learned through life's many sufferings. That silence becomes a mirror, forcing them to face their own pettiness. I once watched this unfold at a table of colleagues. A man cracked a joke meant to sting, expecting his target to argue back. Instead, the target simply set down his glass, looked at him with calm eyes, and said nothing. The air shifted. The laughter died. And suddenly, the joke exposed not the man in silence, but the one who told it. He was left squirming, scrambling to fill the gap. In that moment, silence was sharper than any reply. Withdraw strategically, and you become unpredictable. And unpredictability creates fear. They cannot measure you, cannot read you, cannot box you into the easy role they had prepared. What they thought would be a cheap grab at dominance collapses into doubt. Did they go too far? Why didn't you react? What are you thinking? That uncertainty is heavier than any counterpunch. This is not passivity, it is precision. You are not ignoring the cut. You are letting it echo back toward the hand that dealt it. You are not shrinking. You are drawing the line without raising your voice. The Stoics lived this. Epictetus taught that it is not what happens to us, but how we respond that defines us. To pause, to refuse to feed their fire, is to prove that your worth is not for sale to anyone's insult. Defensiveness, appeasement, nervous laughter, but when it crashes into cold stillness, it withers. What was meant to wound becomes a spectacle of desperation. And those who witnessed it see clearly who lost the room. Not later, not in theory, but now. Go silent, yet stand firm. Withhold your energy, and the balance shifts. And from here, the game only deepens. Moving into the second chapter, picture this. The air has gone still after your silence, yet their eyes are still on you, searching, waiting. The first move, withdrawal, has unsettled them. Now comes the strike they never expected. You don't shout. You don't retaliate. You turn their own words into a mirror. Now imagine locking eyes with someone who thought they had you cornered. You tilt your head, not with aggression, but with a calm that unsettles. And then, with the tone of a surgeon, you ask, "Did you mean to say it that way?" The room stiffens. The words hang in the air, no longer light, no longer harmless. Or perhaps you choose, "You sure you want to repeat that?" Or the sharper cut, "That sounded personal." Want to clarify before I respond? Each question is not defense, it is exposure. You aren't denying their move, you're inviting them to make it again, louder, in front of witnesses. The Stoics knew this game of inversion. Epictetus taught, if someone speaks ill of you, it is their problem. Your task is not to protect yourself, but to reveal them. And there is no revelation sharper than forcing a man to stand beside his own words. Suddenly, the insult is not about you, it is about them. Their intent is unveiled, their courage tested, and most often, their courage is found lacking. I once watched a colleague humiliate himself in this exact way. He tried to dismiss another man in front of a group, hoping to draw laughter. Instead of arguing, the man asked, "Would you like to explain that a second time so we're all clear?" The laughter died. Silence spread, and the aggressor shrank under the weight of his own words. That day, he was marked, not his target. Marked as small, marked as unsafe to trust. You see, most who disrespect you are not bold. They are opportunists. They cast lines to see who bites. They jab not out of strength, but out of habit, believing no one will call them to stand on their own insult. When you answer with calm exposure, the game changes. They begin to stumble, to hesitate, to retreat. And it is that hesitation you seek, not revenge, not drama, doubt. Because doubt is the invisible chain. It lingers in their mind long after the moment has passed. The one who causes doubt does not need to demand respect, he radiates it. He doesn't shout, "Look at me." He makes others check themselves before they cross the line again. This is the second blade in your arsenal, questions that cut deeper than anger ever could. Let the silence frame the words, let the words become their reflection, and let the reflection breed doubt. From here, the ground shifts even more. And in that shift, you prepare for the next move. Advancing to the third chapter, here's where the game deepens. One moment of silence, one confrontation handled with clarity, that is good. But what unsettles people more is not a single strike. It is consistency. Anyone can stand firm once. Few can hold the line without softening later. And that is exactly what the test becomes. Now, imagine the shift after you've called the moment. The room grows cautious, yet the one who crossed you starts watching for weakness, looking for a door left slightly open. They wonder, was that strength permanent, or was it only borrowed for the moment? They may smile and joke again, lighter this time. They may leave you out of a decision and call it an oversight. They may toss a small, passive comment and search your face for even a flicker of hesitation. These are not accidents, they are probes. Subtler, sharper, meant to see if your boundary is real or just a show. Here the Stoics offer their wisdom. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." The same applies here. Do not announce your new line. Live it. reframe the relationship immediately. You don't return to normal. You don't pour warmth back into the same cup. You redraw the line with how you speak, how you carry yourself, how unavailable you now become. Your distance becomes the lesson. Your posture becomes the punishment. I once saw a man tested this way in a circle of friends. He had stopped a disrespect with calm authority, but a week later, the same person slid in a sly remark, smiling as if it were harmless. This time, the man did not argue. He did not laugh. He simply let the silence hang, then turned to someone else and continued his conversation. That small act, the refusal to return warmth, shifted the room more than any clever comeback could have. From that day forward, no one treated him lightly again. His presence had become principle, not noise. This is what separates the respected from the ignored. Not intimidation, not endless confrontation. Principle. You have shown the room. I am not available for that. I will not bend just to keep you comfortable. The social current changes in your favor, and suddenly your name carries weight. People speak with more calculation, less ease. They remember that your silence is not emptiness, but a blade they do not wish to feel again. Machiavelli understood this power of public consequence. When the disrespect is dealt with in front of others, it does not only end the threat, it educates the audience. And from then on, you do not need to remind them with words. Your shift echoes louder than any declaration. At this stage, the truth is simple. Disrespect is never isolated. It is always a signal, a probe, a flick of the hand to see how far they can reach before you push back. If you allow one insult dressed as humor, one slight dismissal, one compliment laced with venom, you have taught the entire room what your silence is worth. And once they see you as easy to violate, regaining control costs double the effort. So hold the line, redraw it without explanation, withdraw your warmth, sharpen your language, and let them feel the distance. This is how you end it before it begins, not with anger, not with ego, but with discipline, distance, and command. And as the probes continue, the next lesson grows even sharper. From here, the air grows heavier. The first silence unsettled them, the second question exposed them, but now comes the moment that carves the boundary into stone. When they test you again, and they will, you do not meet them with the same weight they used against you. You meet them with more. Not in anger, not in noise, but in consequence. Now imagine someone repeating the offense, thinking perhaps the tide has softened. A smirk, a jab, a question designed to pull you back into the game. This is the point where most collapse. They laugh it off to keep peace. They forgive too quickly to win approval. But that isn't strength. That is bargaining with dignity. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time debating what a good man should be. Be one." In this moment, being one means standing firm, colder than before, untouchable. Machiavelli understood this cruel clarity. Fairness does not reshape behavior. Forgettable consequences fade, but disproportionate consequences linger. If the punishment matches the insult, the memory dies quickly. If the punishment outweighs the insult, the memory scars. You are not lashing out. You are writing a lesson in stone. You do not get to play with me twice. Picture a gathering where someone makes their second attempt. Instead of defending yourself, you pause. You hold their gaze just long enough, then turn deliberately to address someone else. No anger, no retort, just removal. Or imagine they ask you a question, baiting for weakness. You respond with one word, steady, then shift your attention elsewhere. The message is unmistakable. They are not worth more of you. It is not aggression. It is absence. I once saw this played out at a dinner table. A man had mocked another earlier in the evening and been met with silence. Later, emboldened, he tried again. The target leaned back, looked at him, and then turned calmly to continue a conversation with someone else. He answered nothing. No smile, no spark of recognition. The offender sat there suddenly irrelevant. That cold exclusion hurt more than any insult could, because the deepest wound is not being attacked, it is being erased by someone who once acknowledged you. This is where most fail. They crave to be liked, to smooth things over, to appear noble by forgiving. But forgiveness offered too quickly is not noble. It is weakness painted as virtue. Seneca warned, "He who does wrong is the first to condemn himself. Let their own act condemn them." Your role is to enforce the cost, not with rage, not with drama, with silence, distance, and precision. At this stage, the shift becomes undeniable. Respect is not earned through forgiveness, it is earned through consequence. And consequence delivered without emotion is unforgettable. That is the second move. And from here, the game ascends again into something sharper still. Entering the 5th chapter, the stage has already been set. They disrespected you once, you stood firm, and now the crowd is no longer neutral. Every eye has turned, waiting to see whether your stance was a moment of resistance or the beginning of a standard. This is the crucible. Because people are always watching, even when you wish they weren't. They saw the cut. They saw your stillness, and now they're weighing your silence against your future. Think of reputation as a cloak. Once woven, it wraps around you long after the moment has passed. Machiavelli said image is more powerful than truth, and he wasn't wrong. In the aftermath of conflict, what people remember is not the insult, it's your reaction. Did you retreat back to softness, pretending nothing happened? Or did you hold the line, unshaken? This is where your silence becomes armor. Not brittle, not decorative, but forged steel that others recognize without you lifting a finger. Now imagine the whispers that begin when your restraint hardens into consistency. He doesn't tolerate that. She won't engage if crossed. You only get one chance with them. These are not self-proclaimed titles. They are earned through presence, one surgical response at a time. And once these words begin to circulate, the room tilts differently. Jokes stop before they reach your ears. People adjust their tone mid-sentence. Introductions shift. Suddenly, you are described as no-nonsense, sharp, intense. That is not branding, that is power. Seneca once wrote, "Reputation is what others know about you. Honor is what you know about yourself." The beauty of this practice is that it gives you both. You didn't ask for it. You built it, brick by brick. Each brick laid by refusing to bend your principles for the comfort of others. Each brick reinforced by showing that self-respect is never negotiable. The fortress grows, and with it, the way others move around you. I once saw this change unfold in a colleague. At first, people tested him constantly, interruptions, sly remarks, small digs, but he stopped engaging, held his calm, and let silence carry weight. Months later, he didn't need to ask for respect. His name alone carried an invisible caution. People introduced him as decisive. They never joked loosely in his direction again. He had reshaped not just how they treated him, but how they spoke of him when he wasn't there. That is leverage. At this stage, you no longer need to fight for space. Space expands around you. Your image has become your armor, and your silence has become your shield. The test of one moment becomes the standard of a lifetime, and that is how you recast yourself. not as someone who demands respect, but as someone whose very presence enforces it. If this truth resonates with you, anchor it now, subscribe so you don't miss what comes next, and drop one word in the comments: armor. Because the one who builds their image with discipline never begs for respect. They embody it, and from here, the lesson only cuts deeper. At this stage, the surface game of silence and distance is no longer enough. Some people are not moved by caution or shame. They do not care how the room sees them, because what they want is not approval. They want your reaction. They crave the disruption, the tremor in your composure. They push boundaries not for need, but for sport. And when such people encounter you, the test sharpens. They either retreat in frustration or they escalate. And if they escalate, you do not match them with heat. You rise above them with clarity. Now imagine someone making a cruel remark, their tone casual, their face daring you to flinch. You do not flare, you do not scold. Instead, you hold their words up like a mirror, letting the room see what they have revealed about themselves. A simple line: "That's an interesting joke. Do you use that one at work too?" Or, "If you talk to your friends like that, I'd hate to hear how you speak to strangers." Or the sharpest blade of all: "I'm surprised you said that out loud." These words are not weapons thrown in anger. They are spotlights. They drag the insult into daylight, and suddenly it clings to the one who threw it. Seneca once wrote, "He who does wrong is the first to condemn himself." That is precisely the point. You are not condemning them. You are letting them do it to themselves, only louder, only clearer, with the eyes of others upon them. Their confidence shrinks, not because you overpowered them, but because you revealed them, small, noisy, insecure. I once saw this unfold in a gathering where a man, known for his sharp tongue, tried to belittle another. His target did not fight back. He simply asked, "Would you say that in front of your manager?" The laughter froze. The joke turned to stone in the speaker's mouth. What had once been his weapon now weighed him down in silence. He shifted, stammered, and the room moved on, but he was marked. Not by retaliation, but by exposure. This is the essence of Machiavellian retaliation. Never loud, never rushed, always precise. You let their words hang until they can no longer breathe in the air. Then you collapse them into something they must now own. They carry it, not you. And you remain calm, composed, untouchable. This is how power is built in silence, not just by refusing to react, but by transforming every attempt at disrespect into evidence of their own weakness. One measured response at a time, you stop chasing respect. You become the one who does not argue, the one who does not explain, the one who ends it quietly, surgically, and permanently. And from here, the lesson grows even sharper still. Here's where the veil is lifted. Most people think disrespect grows from courage, but it does not. It grows from safety. They strike because they believe you won't. They mock because they trust there will be no consequence. They push because they are certain you've never pushed back. That assumption is their fuel, and once you cut it off, the fire dies. Now imagine a man who insults you not because he is bold, but because he feels safe. He is certain you will laugh it off, excuse it, or quietly absorb it. When you don't, when your silence stays sharp and your gaze stays steady, the ground beneath him shifts. He wonders if he has gone too far. He questions why you are quiet now, when before you might have defended yourself. This doubt, this hesitation, is not fear, it is uncertainty. And uncertainty is a shield sharper than steel. Machiavelli knew this. Power does not belong to the one who strikes most often. It belongs to the one who could strike at any time. The Stoics echo the same truth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." Calm unpredictability unsettles more than open threat ever could. When you are not easily read, not easily provoked, you become an anomaly. And anomalies change the rhythm of the room. I once saw a leader embody this. He rarely spoke, and when he did, his words carried weight. People joked with others, but not with him. They excluded others, but always kept him included. Why? Not because he demanded respect, but because he was unreadable. He paused longer than expected. He spoke less than others. He observed with an intensity that made people shift in their seats. No one knew where his limits were, and so they stopped testing. That is the lesson. A ruler who is too consistent becomes predictable, and predictability invites manipulation. But a presence that is still, measured and unreadable becomes untouchable. You do not need to threaten. You do not need to explain. You simply need to be harder to predict. The moment your name carries uncertainty, you've already won. From here, the dynamic bends toward you. People defer, not because they are afraid, but because instinct teaches them caution around what they do not fully understand. You have become that presence, and as you lean into it, saying less, observing longer, letting silence cut deeper than words, you discover that respect is no longer something you chase. It arrives on its own. Advancing to the 8th chapter, here comes the twist that most never see. Respect is not born from being liked. It does not come from charm, from easy laughter, or from soft edges. Respect is born from being felt, from presence. When you enter a room and voices dip, when shoulders straighten, when the atmosphere itself shifts, that is not popularity, that is weight. And weight is not given, it is built. Now imagine this paradox. You do not always respond, yet when you do, it cuts. You do not dominate every exchange, yet you refuse to be crossed. You do not ask for respect, yet the moment it is violated, you close the door without ceremony. Presence is built from contradiction, restraint laced with precision, calm wrapped around consequence. Your very energy becomes a silent warning, a boundary no one dares test twice. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. And here lies the deeper transformation, the one few ever master. You stop treating disrespect as a wound. You start treating it as information. Where others hear insult and bleed, you hear confession, insecurity, jealousy, fear, projection, a desperate attempt to claw control where none exists. Their mockery is not about you. It is a map of their own weakness. I once saw this play out with striking clarity. A man was mocked in a meeting, the insult sharp and cutting. Instead of flinching, he tilted his head slightly, almost with curiosity, as if studying a specimen. He said nothing, but afterward he logged it, not in anger, but in calculation. That colleague was never given access to him again. And without confrontation, the balance of respect shifted forever. The room understood that silence was not submission, it was memory, and memory was strategy. This is the final twist of power. You log the violation, then decide, does this person still deserve access? Should they be isolated quietly, or should their behavior be exposed as a lesson for others? Do you use them as a tool, or let them disappear into irrelevance? You are no longer playing emotional chess, burning energy in small battles. You are orchestrating position, and in position lies true control. Machiavelli knew the sharpness of this truth. The best position is one where others fear violating your boundary, even when you are not there. When your absence carries the same weight as your presence, that is victory, not when you are praised, not when you are admired, but when people hesitate before even considering crossing you. The ones who never get disrespected are not always the loudest. They are the ones who made disrespect too costly. Not through rage, not through revenge, but through disciplined silence, disproportionate consequence, and unapologetic self-enforcement. They no longer play the shallow social game of jokes and jabs. They play the deeper game of power, and power bends the room in silence. Picture it. People who once joked freely now pause. Words soften before reaching your ears. Their energy recalibrates without you saying a thing. Because they know you are not here to blend in. You are here to be respected. And if they cannot offer that, you will leave them in a silence they will not recover from. Here is the subtle moment in every power dynamic. After the pause, after the boundary, after you made it clear without a word, the room itself recalibrates around you. It is no longer that people stop disrespecting you. It is that they stop even imagining they could. That is the final layer Machiavelli would insist upon. You do not simply respond to disrespect. You transform what you represent in the minds of others. Because in the end, power is not your reaction. Power is the assumption of what you might do, even if you say nothing at all, and in that assumption, your limits become unknown. Entering the 9th chapter, the silence you carry is no longer mistaken for surrender. It is something sharper: preparation, containment, the calm before a strike that may never come, but is always possible. And here is what most people miss. Enforcing a boundary once is never the end. It is only the beginning. Because the first violation does not just test you, it reveals you to everyone else watching. And make no mistake, people are always watching. Now imagine this moment. Someone crosses you in public, and the room goes still. It is not only their eyes on you, but every bystander's. They are asking the same question. Is this person's value self-regulated, or does it crumble under pressure? If you hold frame without exploding, without apologizing, without scrambling to be understood, something rare happens. The room feels a certainty that cannot be explained but cannot be ignored. Certainty in who you are. And certainty is the rarest currency in a world addicted to approval. This doesn't mean you grow cold. It means your warmth is no longer a default setting. You smile because you choose to. You speak when you decide your words carry weight. You grant access only to those who treat it as a privilege, never an entitlement. Seneca once wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you. That includes yourself. Remove the neediness, the over-explaining, the desperate chase to be liked, and what remains is value." I once knew a man who embodied this subtraction. In his youth, he filled silence with chatter, justifying his place in every room. People interrupted him, even mocked him, because they sensed he would always bend. But over time, he changed. He stopped explaining. He stopped tolerating small cuts disguised as jokes. He let silence fill the air until others leaned forward. Soon, the same people who once ignored him began repeating his words later, because those words had become rare. He no longer moved within the terrain of others. He became the terrain. This is how you become untouchable, not through muscle or dominance, but through energetic value. By removing the excess, reactivity, excuses, tolerance of small violations, you make every ounce of your presence carry weight. The room slows when you enter. People measure their tone. They think twice before crossing you. And here comes Machiavelli's brutal truth. Men must be either respected or eliminated. In modern terms, either they recognize your value or they lose access to it. Those who test you once and never again are not enemies, they are lessons. But those who persist subtly, manipulatively, repeatedly, they do not deserve correction twice. For them, silence is exile. Distance is punishment. You rise in stature while they fade into irrelevance, because in silence you exposed them. In distance, you reminded them. You were never truly accessible, they were merely being tolerated. And once you make this shift, everything changes. You stop chasing approval. You stop explaining attacks that do not deserve your words. You stop proving you are the bigger person because you finally see the Stoic truth. You never need to defend what you do not allow to be touched. They cannot disrespect you if they cannot reach you. They cannot undermine you if your worth was never borrowed from their approval. They cannot provoke you when your silence forces them to question their own standing. This is the apex of discipline, not cruelty, not pride, but control. Control of what you react to, control of what you return, control of who is even granted the chance to test your calm. This is how kings moved in Machiavelli's world. And this is how you move in yours. With presence so exacting, so disciplined, that one violation is enough for a lifetime. And from that moment forward, you are no longer just respected. You are the standard, the measure by which all others are weighed. Entering the 10th chapter, the moment sharpens into its final form. Someone who once disrespected you realizes they were wrong. They circle back, an apology, a nervous laugh, an attempt to reset the air. And here comes the question that defines legacy. What do you do then? You don't punish, you don't forgive, you do something colder, more exact. You remain unchanged. Because now, you're not reacting to the insult, you're sculpting perception. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That truth becomes flesh here. Machiavelli understood this final layer. Mercy can be more terrifying than punishment, not the soft mercy of reconciliation, a harder mercy, stripped of warmth, carrying the silent message, "You are no longer a threat to me." That is how the game truly ends. Picture it. You enforced the boundary. You withdrew your presence. Silence became memory. And when they return, testing whether the ice has melted, you don't lash out, you don't smile, you don't soothe, you remain still, no bitterness, no resentment, no speeches, simply unchanged. I once saw this between two former allies, one betrayed against. Later, the betrayer tried to patch things with jokes and half apologies. The other didn't rage, didn't embrace. He stayed calm, steady, removed. The message was clear: your place is gone. The friendship ended not in fire, but in silence. And that silence carried more weight than any confrontation could. This is ultimate control. To show that your state is beyond apology or flattery, that you have no need to punish or forgive because you've already moved past the wound. They no longer matter. Their presence, once sharp, dissolves into absence. Here is the Stoic lesson at its purest. Power is not in striking back. Power is in refusal. Refusal to be pulled, to be softened, to be defined. You let them drift into irrelevance while you remain unshaken. That is how the story ends, not with noise, but with a calm so absolute it becomes untouchable. Subscribe now, comment, stay strong, and keep walking with clarity.